Howdy guys, welcome back to the Country Chemist. Today we're going to be talking about the point-slope form of an equation. So let's start by talking about slope. What is slope? Slope is defined as your change in your y divided by your change in your x. You might also hear it called rise over run, or you might also see it worked out as y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, or this could be flipped, y1 minus y2 over x1 minus x2. Doesn't matter as long as they're on the same side. Okay, so this format here is very useful because if we manipulate this, we can determine what point-slope form is. Okay, first let's talk about this equation and then we'll change this over to point-slope form. What does this tell us? This tells us that if we pick any 2 points on the graph, let's say we have the point 1, 1, and we have the point, let's say this is 5, 4. If we were to plug these points into this equation, we would get the slope. This tells us how much it changes in y, how much it changes in x. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and call this point 2 and this point 1. So we have 4 minus 1 divided by 5 minus 1. 4 and 1, 4 and 1, both the y values. Then 5 and 1, so both the x values. And notice that 4 and 5, 4 and 5, they're grouped on the same side. That's what's important. Okay, so here we get 3 divided by 4, and this is our slope. You can also see it this way. Here we go up by 3, because we're going 1, 2, 3, 4, so we go up by 3, then we go from 1 to 5, so over 4, up 3, over 4, up 3, over 4. Fantastic. So the slope is 3/4. But if I asked for the equation for this line, that's a little bit more complicated. To get the equation for the line, you have to put this into point-slope form. So what is point-slope form? So let's take our equation, m equals y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. Let's go ahead and rearrange this. So this says y2 minus y1 equals m x2 minus x1. Okay, cool. Now let's go ahead and say that y1 and x1 are a given point on the graph, but y2 and x2 can be any point along the line. In which case, let's go ahead and delete these and leave them as variables rather than specific points. This is point-slope form of an equation. Okay, cool. So now we can go ahead and plug in any point we want on the line into here. We can plug in the slope. Now I personally am going to choose 1, 1 because the number is smaller, the math is a little bit easier. Okay, so y minus 1, taking this y value here, moving it over, equals 3/4 x minus 1. So now taking the x value, moving it over. Okay, cool. And if they just ask for the equation for the line, this is good enough. But let's go ahead and change this over to slope-intercept form so we can talk about that. So let's move the 1 over, and let's go ahead and distribute this as well. So 3/4 x minus 3/4, and we move the 1 over, so plus 1. So this equals 3/4 x plus 1/4. And this is the equation for this line. Okay, so let's go ahead and see what happens if I plugged in the other point, just to prove that this works. Okay, so if I plug in the other point, we have y minus 4 equals 3/4 x minus 5. So let's go ahead and distribute this and move that over. So y equals 3/4 x, distribute this, so minus 15 over 4. And when I move this over, I get plus 4, but let's change that with the denominator 4. So 4 is the same thing as 16 over 4. So 16 over 4. And then this simplifies to 3/4 x plus 1/4. And notice that this and this are the same. Okay, cool. So what does this mean? This means that if you know this one equation, m equals change in y over change in x, you can quickly manipulate this into the point-slope form of an equation. From there, you can plug in the slope you found out from the original equation, and then just take a point and plug it in for y1 and x1, and then solve, and you have your equation. So I think this is a very fantastic topic to look at. It comes up quite frequently in algebra. This is a great way at taking a few points and turning into a line. I hope that you find this very useful. I think this derivation is great, especially for someone who is just starting to learn this topic, because if you understand where this equation comes from, you don't have to worry as much about memorizing it. It will make sense to you. Of course, through practice, you memorize these equations quite well, but when you're first starting out, if you know where this equation comes from, it makes a lot more sense. This equation is just a variation of m equals delta y over delta x, rise over run. Hope this helps. Thank you very much, and have a great day.